Welcome to Solving Quadratic Equations. That's section 6.5. This is the last section of chapter 6. And I think what I'm going to do for this section is separate it into two separate videos. Toward the end, I think there's 3 questions at the end that are word problems. And I think I'm going to dedicate a separate video for those 3 questions. Okay, so let's give you a little background as to what we're doing here. So far, from section 6.1 to 6.4, we didn't solve anything. All we did was we took these expressions, these big expressions, and we factored them. Okay, we did trinomials. We took trinomials and made it into 2 separate little terms. We showed you the magic number technique in order to achieve that for a lot of problems, but we never actually solved for any type of number. Now we're going to solve for a number. So here's the deal. Let me go ahead and come back and we'll start with problem number 1. I'll start my paintbrush so that you can go ahead and take a look at what I'm doing here in terms of solving. And okay, that's good. We can move this over here as well. What we want to do is take this expression, which looks familiar, doesn't it? We just never had the equal 0 there before. The equal 0 just didn't exist before. And it looks like something that you can FOIL out to get an r squared. It looks like minus 12r plus 3r is 9r, and then minus 36. But that's not what they want you to do here. With the equal 0, we're changing these problems up a lot. Okay? And let me go ahead and just copy that. R plus 3 and R minus 12. Now, in the chapter, in your readings, or if you take a look at the multimedia that comes with this section, they have this thing called the principle of 0. And what the principle of 0 says is, well, if you know, here we got 2 things that are multiplied together. Here's a factor that's multiplied by this factor, and you know that those 2 things multiplied together equals 0. When you multiply 2 things and you know the answer is 0, the principle of 0 says one of those things must be 0, because how else can you generate a 0 with multiplication? In order to generate a 0 with multiplication, one of those things must be 0. So that's what we're going to do to apply. We're going to apply to this problem here. See? What we want to say is this factor, r plus 3, either that factor equals 0, or, so I'm making a little, this is like a little or line, or r minus 12 equals 0. And so solving these little equations here, now in this case you would subtract 3 from both sides. That's a simple little Algebra 1 problem. And then here we would add 12 to both sides to get 12. And we got the 2 answers that make that problem equal to 0. Okay, so what I would do is come in here and put in, let me make this a little bit smaller, because we don't really need all this real estate here. Make this smaller and come and put this over here. One answer is minus 3, comma. Separate your answers with commas. Put a 12 in there. And I think we're going to, so let's push this up a little bit. Yeah. Check your answer and you got a nice work. And that's what you're going to be doing in this entire chapter. You're using this thing called principle of 0 to solve these type of problems. Okay, now this guy here really shouldn't be in this chapter, because this doesn't really require any type of principle of 0. But because you could just multiply through, you could have done this for this problem here. You don't need any fancy thing for this problem. Okay, because in Algebra 1, what you would do is you multiply through in Algebra 1 with 5x, get rid of the parentheses, and then what you would do is then add 40 to both sides, Because, see, the equations tell you what to do. You always do the opposite of what you see in order to solve it. Okay, so we add 40 to both sides, and then when we solve solve for x is being multiplied by 5. You need to divide both sides by 5, and you get the number 8 as the answer. Now, if you really and truly want to do principle of zero, I guess you could use it here. Here you got two things multiplied together equals 0. Separate those factors, and then take your factors and set them equal to 0. Now, this factor 5, setting that equal to 0 is nonsense. Makes no sense because there's no variable there. But this makes more sense. X minus 8, because it does have a variable. You take that factor, set it equal to 0, and then you get x equals 8. Either way, you would have got the answer, but I don't think I would have gone principle of 0 on that problem. Check the number 8. Nice work. Let's go on to the next problem. Now this guy here, let me clear it. Clear it. Oh, first kill this. Kill this. Don't save. Okay, file new. File new, okay. And let's move this over here. All right, move the toolbox over too. All right, 6a parentheses 11a plus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, well, we'll use principle of 0. 6 is a factor. A is a factor. This is a factor. Now, what you're going to do is take your factors, set them equal to 0. So I'm separating all these factors here. That's what I'm doing. I'm just separating them. Now, setting 6 equal to 0 is another situation where it makes no sense. There's no variable. If there's no variable, you can't solve anything. So leave that alone. That's a nonsense. I'm going to set this factor equal to 0, and by golly, we got an answer already. A is equal to 0. There's nothing to solve. Now, this guy here, you set this factor equal to 0. Okay. And and you've got this little algebra 1 problem to solve. You're going to subtract 5 here, and you're going to subtract 5 here, because you always do the opposite of what the equation says. That leaves you with 11a, because 5 minus 5 is 0, which is the whole idea. And then the last thing you're going to do is look at the a. A is being multiplied by 11, and the opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to get rid of that and cancel that. So it looks like a is also equal to negative 5/11. So let's put those answers in the computer, see what happens. Put that in there. We get 0, comma, and then I'm going to make a nice little fraction here. This fraction, well, here, I'm going to put negative 5. As long as the negative is there, and divided by 11, there's your fraction. I'm going to hit check answer, excellent, and okay. Now we start doing some quadratic equation solving. And that needs a new sheet of paper. Don't save, because I think now we know about the principle of 0. File new. Okay, new sheet of paper right there. Okay, I'm going to put this problem down. Now, this is something totally new. You didn't do this in Algebra 1. Whenever you've got a problem with a square, like we have here, and we've seen these problems with squares in all the other chapters, and you have an equal 0, and it's set equal to 0, what you need to do to solve this is to factor this mess. If you're not factoring in Algebra 2, you're doing something wrong. I'll tell you right now. A lot of the problems require that you factor the expressions. Okay, so let's factor that, and I think we can do that at this point. We've been doing this all the while. Here we got no negativity, so we put pluses here, plus here, and I want two numbers that multiply together to give you 12. So I guess 4 and 3 would do the job because they would add to 7. There, that's a nice factor job. What do you think the answers are going to be? Well, what the answers are going to be requires that you set the factors. W, a lot of people say 0. The answer is 0. No, it's not 0. The factor has to be set to 0. W plus 4 is equal to 0. Subtract 4, you get negative 4 on both sides right there. It's sort of the opposite of what you see here. Now, a lot of people would also say the answer is 4. No, the answer is not 4. It's negative 4 because negative 4 plus 4 would generate a 0 there. Likewise here, W plus 3 equals 0. And if I subtract 3, I get W equals negative 3. And those are your two answers. Doesn't matter the order you put them in. Check your answer. Fantastic. Okay, now I'm going to skip this one because this looks like the previous one. I'll do this one. That's a harder problem right there. That's a difficult problem. And that is difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and not say don't save. I don't want to save that. Let's just say file new, start fresh. Okay. Whenever you do problems with squares in them, you must have an equal 0. And because in order to do these problems, you're going to have to use that principle of 0. That requires that you have an equal 0. So we got that. That's great. Next thing that you're going to do is you're going to probably factor your expression like we've always done. I'm telling you, you're going to be sick of factoring because that's all this Algebra 2 is about, factoring. Equals 0. Now, it's the same fact. So forget the equals 0 for now. You're going to factor this big trinomial. How do you do that? Well, it looks like I can't pull out a 7. 7 doesn't go into 48 evenly. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is use, what do you call that? The magic number technique, where I'm going to take the 7 away from the x squared, keep the minus 48x, and then what I'm going to do is take 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. Okay, now factor that. Now factor this. X, plus and minus on that negative 49. Two numbers that multiply together to give you 49, add or subtract to be 48. It looks like it's 49 and 1. Strange pair, but that's what it is, 49 and 1. But that's not the end of it. The next step in the magic number technique is to make fractions out of those numbers. The next step is to simplify the fractions. Well, 1 over 7 is already simplified. If you still have a fraction, you take your denominator, put it in front of the x to get 7x plus 1. And this is x minus 7, and that's equal to 0. Don't forget, ultimately it's equal to 0. This mess down here is equal to this factored. Now what you're going to do now is you set your factors equal to 0, and I'd like to put a little wall between your factors. I'm going to tell you right now, this factor is equal to 7. That's a big 7, but that's a 7. Okay? This guy here requires a little bit of work where we take the factor, set it equal to 0. All right, so we need to subtract 1, minus 1, minus 1. We have 7x equals negative 1. And then I'm going to divide by 7 to give you negative 1 over 7. And those are your two answers. I'm sure of it. I'm not even going to look at it again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say negative 1 over 7 is one answer, comma, 7. And let's go that. Well done. Thank you. Very, very good. Okay. Let's take a look at this problem here. Problem number 7. Almost halfway done to the first video here. Look at this. You know that? That's a difference of 2 squares. I don't need any special math to do this. Here, you're a math machine. C plus 8, C minus 8. You need to factor, and those factors have to be set equal to 0. Okay? Now, I factored it. I set And now what you're going to do next is set your factors equal to 0, which means that c plus 8 equals 0, or c minus 8 equals 0, which leaves you with a c equals 8. Actually, minus 8. This first one is minus 8. And c equals positive 8 for the second one. Okay? That doesn't require much effort, really. So, but if I check my answer, obviously it's going to be wrong, because as far as the computer is concerned, it just sees a bunch of gibberish. All it wants to see are numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this stuff in between. Okay? And I see a lot of these errors too. A lot of people enter c equals in the boxes. Don't do that, because they already gave you a c equals. So minus 8, comma 8, and we'll get rid of all this other nonsense there, and that should be the answer. But I want to show you something that can sweeten up it allows you to enter these numbers a lot quicker. When you find yourself having minus 8, 8, minus 2, 2, that means you've got this symbol here that you could use, which means, now the computer would take this. The computer would take this. But it also takes this. That's a lot nicer. Plus or minus 8. Plus or minus 8. And I'm going to use that. I want you to start using that as well. Okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? No, it's not. Let's go back. Let's go back. I made a mistake. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. You're all young. You're not going to lose your mind. Okay. The problem is it's plus or minus 9. And let's just do this again. C plus 9, C minus 9 equals 0. I had plus and minus 8. I lost my mind. 9 times 9 is 81. 8 times 8 is 64. So I don't know what I was thinking. So bottom line is, if you set the factors equal to 0, you will get plus and minus 9 as your answer. And so come back here, get that, final check, and thank goodness that you can re-enter your expressions, I think 3 times. So, okay, that's good, that's good. Let's see what this one is. Okay, let's do this. Cancel that. Don't save it. Come over here, File, New. Okay, we're going to come over here and move this over. And see, right now, the way it looks, I can't do the problem. It's a requirement that whenever you see a problem with a square in it, it's called a quadratic equation. Okay, in order to solve the quadratic equation, you must have an equals 0, not an equals 21. Well, that's no problem. Subtract 21 from both sides. This gives me an equals 0. And then what we're going to do is collect all these terms, which aren't like terms, so we'll have a squared term, minus 4x, minus 21. And doesn't it look like what we've already talked about here? It sounds like it should. So we're going to factor that. Equals 0. And we have x and x for x squared. Looks like it's plus and minus for the negative 21. And 7 and 3. 7 and 3. Okay, that would be the answer. So what do you think the answer would be? This guy here, when you set the factor equal to 0, gives me an x value of negative 3 and 7. It's the opposite sign of what you see here. So I'm going to go with negative 3 and 7. Enter. Here you go. That's it. Okay, I'll let you do this one because it looks like the one that we did before. Number 10. I will do number 10. Let's scan ahead. Scan ahead. Okay. Okay, let's go to number 10. Clear it. Don't save. File, New. Okay. Move this over here. looks to me like what we're going to do, that's a square, is copy the problem, equals minus 36. You can't have, this is a quadratic. I have a square. I have to have an equal 0 if you have any hope of solving it. So what you're going to do is add 36 to both sides, because the opposite of negative 36 is 36. I'm going to add 36 to both sides to give you this. Okay. Now I've got to factor this. First thing I would try to do is pull out a common term. I can't. There's nothing. Can't do anything with that. 17 screws us up. So I think I need to do the magic number. Take that 2. That's a 2. Try to factor this. Pull the 2 away from the m squared. Okay, and then factor this, m, couple of pluses, holy jeez, I'm losing my mind. Maybe I should start over again. This is not right. Let me do an undo. File, edit, undo drawing, Control Z, Control Z. Can you see what the problem is? Can you see what the problem is? Okay, I can tell you what the problem is. The problem is I divided by 2 here. I don't know what I was thinking here. No, you don't divide by 2, you multiply by 2. So this number here is wrong. Okay, this number is not right. Oh my Lord. That's bad. That's bad. I should get a good night's sleep. 2 times 36, that's what you need for the number here, 72. All right, let's see if I can redeem myself. I got m and m, a couple of pluses, and it's looking better because I need 2 numbers that multiply out to be 72 and add to be 17 will be 8 and 9. Whew, okay. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to divide, make fractions out of those numbers with using the magic number. Simplify the fraction so that we have m plus 4. Now, 9 halves is already simplified. So if it's already simplified, take the denominator, put it in front of the m, is equal to 0. There you go. Now, what's the answers? Set your factors equal to 0. I have a little line separating the two. This is minus 4. That's an easy one. M plus 4 equals 0. Minus 4 is your answer for that guy. Now, this guy here requires a little bit of algebra. And I'm going to subtract 9 and divide by 2. And those are your 2 answers. Okay, let's see if that's right. Minus 4. Let's put a minus 4 in there. Oh, I touched the mouse. Minus 4, comma, negative 9 halves. I also could have put a negative 9 up top. It doesn't matter, as long as you put a negative someplace. Check your answer. Thank goodness. Whew. Whew, whew. Okay, I'm going to do that one. Let's do that one. Edit. No, let's close this. Close this. Don't save. Don't save it. File, new. Okay. Move this over here. 64. A squared equals 25. Well, if there's any chance of solving this, I see a problem with a square. You need to have an equal 0. Not a problem. Subtract 25. Now, they're going to give you problems that you could solve. Okay, so there's got to be a way to solve this. And of course there's a way to solve this because this is a difference of two squares. You got to remember your perfect squares. You got to remember 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, all the way up to like 12 times 12. Those are special square numbers. 64 is 8a times 8a. See, that first term is generated by putting 64a. 25 is 5 and 5. These are the things that are being squared, and I just blindly put a plus and minus in between. Okay, now setting your factors equal to 0, I get 8a plus 5 equals 0. And this is going to be 8a minus 5 equals 0. Now, this guy here, subtract 5 from both sides. 8a equals minus 5. Now, a is being multiplied by 8, divide by 8. I get a equals negative 5 eighths. Now, this is just like the other one, only this time you add 5 and then divide by 8, and you're going to have a equals 5/8 positive. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and this is where the plus and minus really shines. Okay, because it's plus or minus a single fraction, 5/8. Check your answer. Nice work. Nice work. Let me just do a quick scan of what's ahead. Yeah, a couple of those. Okay, all right. We'll just do, I'm going to do this one here. 3 more problems, and I think you'll have enough to do this homework. Well, nope, you don't have enough to do the homework because you need to know about the word problems, and I'm going to wait till the word problems for the in a separate video. So let's go ahead and close this out and start with a new canvas. Okay, drawing canvas, and so I'm going to write this out. This looks more complicated than it really is. And this is going to be 3x squared minus 36. Okay. What I'm going to do, see, I have problems. I have a square in the problem. I don't care where it is. I have a square in the problem. I need an equal 0. Now, you could have the equal 0 on the left or the equal 0 on the right. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to move the minus. If you want to move this 4x squared to on that side, I'd have to subtract 4x. And that what happens is subtracting 4x is not good because I'm going to have a minus 4x here. 3 minus 4 is a negative, and I can't do a negative x squared. I'm going to move the smaller number, 3x squared. Okay, that would give us this. Get rid of this. And then I'm going to add 36. Whatever you do on one side, you do on the other of the equation. Okay, now this is going to equal 0. That cancels out all those terms. Now what's going to happen is 4x squared minus 3x is a plain x squared. Then, see, we're going to have to combine all these terms. And these are 12x and 3x, 36 are not like terms. So you just have to just list them out. 12x plus 36. That's a 12. Okay. Let's factor that guy, because that's what you need to do. Looks like it's x plus 6. X plus 6 equals 0. Solving, I get 2 negative 6s. 2 negative 6s. Now, I want you to experience the pain. I'm going to say minus 6, huh? Minus 6, minus 6. Minus 6, comma, minus 6. I'm so confident I'm going to enter this check box. Oh, that's incorrect. Oh, my God. What does that mean? Here's what the problem is. When you use a comma, you separate different numbers. You really only have one number, one answer for this problem. That answer is -6. Don't list it twice, because if you list it twice, the computer's saying, what are you doing to me? There you go. So sometimes you have to fail to succeed. And in that case here, we failed, and we'll never forget that. All right. Now let me just take a look again as to what we have. I'm going to stop at the 14. Okay, this one here. Don't save. File, new. Do a canvas. Okay. 32. And they gave us something like an R and an R minus 4. Well, look at this thing. We've got two terms multiplied together equals 32. There is no principle of 32. There's only a principle of 0. Okay, so when you got a problem that sort of looks like it's a combination of operations, you got to get rid of the parentheses. You got to multiply through the parentheses. Multiply through. See, you have to have that R squared somehow, some way. Minus 4R. And equals 32. I'm going to subtract 32 now. Subtracting 32 will give us something that we can deal with. So the key is to get rid of the parentheses right away. Minus 32. Let's factor that. R and R, it looks like it's plus and minus. I'm going with 8 and 4. 8 and 4 equals 0. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to waste the mouse on this. The answer is minus 4, comma 8. It's the opposite of what you see here. Check your answer. Great job. Great job. Last but not least is this problem. Let's get rid of this. Don't save, and come over here and say File, New. Okay, and let's do this problem out here. Looks like it's 4t, t minus 1. It's almost like the previous problem. Equals 48. And you got to, somewhere in your problem, you have to have a t squared. We'll get that t squared by multiplying through. Here and here. Multiply through. I'm going to have 4t squared minus 4t. It's starting to look like everything that we did before. Equals 48. Now we could subtract 48 on both sides. Okay, and the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to factor this. Now, how do we factor that? Okay, I can see right off the bat I can pull out a 4. Pull out a 4. You need to get that common factor out of there. T squared minus t, divide by 4, minus 12 equals 0. You got to get this pattern of squares and numbers and middle terms of t's, and this is going to be, now factor that pattern. I'm telling you, you're going to get sick of doing this. That's all this Algebra 2 is. Let's move the 4 down. Looks like it's plus and minus. 4 and 3 equals 0. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 factors. Forget about taking this 4 and setting it equal to 0. It does us no good. There's no variable there, so forget that. This is going to give me minus 3. Okay, and this one's going to give me 4. Okay, and so there we go. Minus 3, comma 4. Check your answer. Good job. Okay, now this one we're not going to do. This looks like something we've already done, actually. It looks like it's something I've already done, but if we did it, This is a magic number job. This is a magic number job. You're gonna get your factors, set them equal to 0. And I'll let you do that. You got to have some fun. Now, from there we go on to word problems. 16, 17, and 18 are word problems. So I'm gonna wait on a separate video for those. Okay. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.